Hey guys, this is East Coast Trev from the East Coast Bowhunting Podcast. I put together a little film on how my season has gone thus far, of a little bit of the positives that have taken place in this hunting season. And with that have come negatives. I've had a couple of misses, couple of hit. Actually, I got one hit and couldn't find the bird, and then it's been a sigh of relief after being able to take all these birds. It was a goal that I set out for myself, was to kill all of these birds with a compound bow, and I have achieved that. I'm very happy for that, but my way of hunting is a little bit different. The first bird I knocked down came in. I called in a gobbler. He held up about 45 yards, 35, 45 yards, and was gobbling his head off. Called in two jakes. The jakes got more balls than the tom. Came right in, beat the shit out of my jake decoy, and I had missed the tom at 20 yards with the decap, and I ended up cutting the Zeus loose and just piling this thing up. But on the second bird, I called in two mature toms and was able to put the hammer down on one of these giant mature Connecticut birds. And as you see in this video, he does some crazy things, and that was very exciting to watch. Probably one of the best hits and kills of the season thus far. And then the third bird that I had taken, which was just yesterday, called in two toms. They came in, they got a little leery of my decoy. It was going away, hard quartering away, and I snuck it in right in his back, and it came right out his chest. To do it with the bow was out of control. This was just the funnest thing. All of these hunts are all self-hunt, self-called, self-filmed, so it's been an experience for me. Enough of me talking. Let the footage show you. In Connecticut, we get 3 birds. So this is my third private land bird,
and it's on to state land next. But I just want to explain to you guys a little bit of what I actually do and how I actually hunt. I hunt a lot different than a lot of other people. You'll read a lot of things about being on the roost and finding the birds where they're roosted, but there's a lot more that goes into that. And education and educating yourself as to where these birds are and what these birds do, where these birds feed, where they roost is great, but getting in between those roosts and those feeds are most important. And a lot of the times you can get into those feed spots, close to those feed spots, and use the land to your advantage. Because what I do in here, if you can see, is a lot of hills, a lot of valleys. And what I do is I'll wait for them to come off the roost and I'll let them set down and then I'll move in on them. I use a ridge, and this particular spot where they're feeding, I use a ridge to get in below them, set up, and start calling and call them back down to me. Not saying that that's going to work every single time, but it's something that is definitely different than a lot of other people do. I'm a big time runner or gunner. I try and find areas where I know the birds are and work those birds and get my fat ass right in there and start calling them right back to me. And sometimes they're lock and load. They're fast-paced hunt. And that's a lot of times you hear me say they came in on a string. Well, guess what? They did come in on a string. This was probably a 15-minute hunt for me, from setup to them being in my lap. And yes, they came in on a string because I am in the area where these birds want to be. I find their transition areas. I get in those transition areas, and I just be the most raspiest hen you ever seen, and they want that. They go fucking nuts. And I called in 2 toms today, and they came in, and obviously they've been pressured, so they were a little weary of the decoys. And bow hunting, I use a decoy. Gun hunting, I do not, especially when I'm hunting the woods. It's something that I've just found that a lot of the times these birds lock up. And that's another thing I use the land to my advantage, is I get on these back sides of these slopes, and I put my decoys down so they don't have a choice. Once they're on top of me, they're on top of me. And it's just something that I've learned over the years of turkey hunting and trying to figure out the way that these birds move and work. And don't get it wrong. This is not something that happened overnight. This is something that I've studied and understood for a long time, and a lot of trials and errors. I've messed up tons of hunts. It's not something that just comes. I mean, yeah, you can trip into a big gobbler, but the chances are it probably not. You're gonna have to really work for those birds, and roosting them, finding out where they are. A lot of the times, if they don't gobble at night when you're roosted, don't count that place out. They just might not be gobbling that night. And the best thing to do is just get in there in the morning and hit your owl calls and find out where they are, and just hunt the birds, man. And some spots you can go in there at 9, 10 o'clock, and leading into that, a lot of the times what happens is these birds, the hens will leave the toms around 9, 10 o'clock. And I shoot 99% of my birds between 9 and 11 o'clock. It's just something that, it's just biologically the way that it works. The hens leave and they go to their nests, and these toms are just, they're hot to try. I mean, these Connecticut birds, I'll tell you what, they were a tough thing to get onto in the early season, and but as the season had slowly progressed on, and the temperatures had changed and the rain has stopped and so on and so forth, these birds are starting to just fire up. I mean, fire up. You hit a call and they just light up.